So I did a video not too long ago about how Trump's bloodline, ancestry line, goes back to King James the Fourth of Scotland. So I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm just showing this is the whole king line, okay? Because all of the, so he had to have gone back also to the first king of Scotland, which would be the first and second and third, because they were all handed down to the next son when the one left the throne. They were a monarchy. So if you see, it's the House of Stuart in Scotland, and then there's James. These were all King of the Scots. James II, James III, and then James IV there. That's where they say Donald Trump's, well, that's what the genealogy, his ancestry genealogy shows. So he had to have also gone back to the third and the second. But if you go further down, you see, I'll zoom in on that too, the bottom, where it's all in black, that's James VI of Scotland, and he was also the first king of England who wrote the Bible. Well, he didn't write it, had it translated into English version. So as you can see here, there still has to be a line to that as well through Donald Trump, because James IV, King of Scotland, married Margaret Tudor, and then see how it goes down. So it still goes, it's all still, so when they rip on him because they say, oh, he's trying to grift off of people for selling the King James Bible. No, I think maybe I would imagine he knows a little bit more than the media does, would be my guess. I mean, think about what we don't know that Donald Trump knows is what I'm interested in. I mean, that he hasn't said, because, you know, he doesn't throw this stuff around about his royalty. But he obviously believed that the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution belonged in the Bible. And I've said before, it's written like it's scripture. When you read a lot of it, it's very much, you can tell when something is written with, you know, that something more powerful was behind it. The Declaration of Independence, most especially. And he had that all put in to the King James Bible, and that's what he was selling. So obviously they belonged in there. That would be I think they do anyway, but because because when you read the founders of America's, I've said this story so many times, how Ben Franklin, who was the atheist of the group, every time they came together to try to write the Constitution, they kept fighting with each other, the founders. They couldn't get anything done, and then finally, this was after the war, obviously, and Ben Franklin said, you know, maybe we need to do that praying thing again, because it seemed to work for us when we were in battle. So the next week, they went to church, they prayed, and then they were able to sit down and write it. And this is just another zoomed version of it. So that's James VI of Scotland. He was the 6th king of Scotland, but he was also the first king of England as well. So obviously there's still a link there. You see what I'm saying? A faded one. Be interesting to know what Trump knows. Because I think there's a lot more he knows that he doesn't say. And this was the Bible, obviously, the Holy Bible. The only other Bibles before that. Now, at the same time, the Geneva Bible, well, the Geneva Bible was being written, which is a very, because I have a Geneva Bible, it's very hard to read, though. It's so hard to read because it's not in English. It's just the way they spelled back then was very different. So it takes a while to kind of understand their writing. But that said, that the only other Bible before that was done on a printer anyway, was the Great Bible, right? And there was the Bishop's Bible, but I think that was the one that the King of England was responsible for. Or a king, one of the kings. That was the one that was the problem because of the king, because the pilgrims, were fleeing that. But and the reason the pilgrims, some of them, they had a printing press, and I was explaining this before. They were in Holland before they fled to America. They went to Holland and were there for like 7 or 10 years, and they were printing the Geneva Bible, which didn't make the King of England very happy. But because people preferred the Geneva Bible because it had writings on the side, and the King James Bible didn't have that writing on the side. So interestingly, while the King James Bible now stands out as the granddaddy of English Bible translations, it was far from the first. By the time King James I took the throne of England in 1503, having already ruled as James VI of Scotland since 1557, quite a few translations had debuted and generated seemingly endless controversy. According to histories, these included 2 especially prominent Bibles: the Geneva Bible, favored by Protestant rabble-rousers, and the more church-sanctioned Bishop's Bible. And even seemingly mild differences in translations could cause dramatic and life-altering consequences. I didn't think so. I mean, I don't know anything about the Bishop's Bible, but if you look at King James, and at least from the verses I have checked with the Geneva Bible and the King James, they're pretty similar. It's just interesting to read what they write on the sides, like the notes. And then it goes on here to talk about that controversy, but that's not as important. The King James Version, also the King James Bible, and the Authorized Version is an early modern English translation of the Christian Bible for the Church of England, which was commissioned in 1604 and published in 1611 by sponsorship of King James VI, and he was King of England the first. He was the first King of England. The 80 books of the King James Version included 39 books of the Old Testament, 14 books of the Apocrypha, and 27 books of the New Testament. And with that timeline I showed earlier, you can see this, so to the left of me, that was Scotland, the House of Stuart, and then this was England, the House of Tudor, because it was King James the IV that married Margaret Tudor, and see, she went back. So they all were related. I mean, all the presidents have been related. I mean, Trump's even related as a distant cousin to Hillary. But many of them. So I think he knows a lot more. I mean, I get that he knows much, but let's just look at some quotes of Donald Trump's. In my former life, I was an insider as much as anybody else, and I knew what it's like, and I still know what it's like to be an insider. It's not bad. It's not bad. Now I'm being punished for leaving the special club and revealing to you the terrible things that are going on having to do with America. Because I used to be a part of the club, I'm the only one that can fix it. I definitely think that's true, for sure. Does anybody, unless they're just a far radical, hateful liberal, have any doubt of that? They are evil people, the press, the media. They are bad people, and nobody lies like they do. When people make the mistake of underestimating me, that's when they are really in for their biggest surprise. Oh, I definitely think that's 100% true. I would never underestimate Donald Trump. You'd be an idiot to underestimate that man.